but I can't hate Pia Zadora because she did Voyage of the Rock Alien, which is amazing.
I need to see more Pia Zadora movies that weren't Naked Gun movies.
That weren't Naked Gun films. Yeah, exactly.
Where she played Pia Zadora.
Where she played herself. And welcome everyone to our final, by any means, a month episode here in the spoiler room. Thank you for venturing down the stairs, pulling up a chair, and popping your favorite drink with us as we talk movie spoilers. And man, do we have a loaded gun for you tonight. Oh, we are looking at 1983's The Lonely Lady. Yeah, I love late 70s, early 80s films like that had these just theme songs. Like they grabbed some, some lounge lizard act and said, "Hey, you're cheap, right? Here, we need a movie. Here's the script. Write a song about this. We need it to be about 3.5 minutes long. Incorporate the title of the movie into the song, and we'll pay you." And they'll be like, "Oh, okay." And that's how you get a theme song like The Lonely Lady.
Lonely Lady.
I'm literally picturing like Bill Murray with the glass in his hand for whiskey. Star Wars, nothing but Star Wars. It's a classic. It's a classic. And yes, I have a classic crew with me tonight to talk about The Lonely Lady, starring Pia Zadora and a few other faces. First off, he's back with us.
Few other faces.
The man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Joe Randazzo is with us. Hello, Joe.
Hey, everyone.
It's been an interesting month, and so glad you've taken this monthly journey with us. For sure.
This is like, I literally messaged you. I was like, what did you just have me watch?
Oh, and then next to Joe, we have the bald in front, formerly known as the blonde in front. It is our good friend, Miss Katie Glidewell, is with us today. How you doing, Katie?
Pretty good. Soon it's going to be back to the blonde in front, fellas. Look at this.
You're now at Ripley Alien 3 stage.
I am getting close to like Robin Tunney from Empire Records and Sinead O'Connor.
Yeah, and then you'll get.
Maybe I'm going to keep it.
And then you'll get to Tank Girl mode. There you go. So you could get to Tank Girl. That'd be cool.
Well, I'm hoping for the Legend of Billie Jean. So.
Oh, there you go. That's a look complete
that's
with
crossing my fingers for Halloween, fellas. Crossing my fingers for Halloween.
Awesome.
You keep dropping my top like heartbreaker, like awesome rebel chick movies. Oh, I love it.
And yes, those dulcet tones is the man who keeps coming back for more. Mr. Ian Simmons is with us tonight. Hello, Ian. How are you?
I'm great now that my internet is working. Sorry, I completely froze out on the pre-show and come skating back in here like Kramer or something. But yeah, I'm glad to be able to join, especially for this. Wow.
Yeah.
Seems to be the general consensus.
Yeah, indescribable piece of film.
That is the general consensus, I think, from everybody tonight. Considering, I think this is except for Katie, I think this is the first watch for pretty much everybody else here. Katie, do you want to give the synopsis of the little?
Not really. No.
Synopsis?
Not really.
Would you like to give the synopsis of the Lonely Lady? You can say no. It's okay to say no. Just say no if you.
I'm saying no. Yeah, I'm saying no.
I'll give it a shot. So Pia Zadora, or as I like to call her in this movie, Pia Zadorable, plays Jerry Lee Randall, a high school student. Oh my God. A high school student who's a writer, and she wins, as they might call in A Christmas Story, a major award for her talents. She goes out to a party, like an end of the year party with some friends, and I guess the guy she's maybe going study with, and she trades up for another guy who gets her a hot dog or a hamburger or something. Turns out to be the son of a renowned screenwriter, And they go on this sort of quote unquote double date joyride back to said screenwriter's estate. The only problem is the guy in the back seat is Ray Liotta. Which when I first saw him at the party, I'm like, oh wow, Ray Liotta is a background player in this 1983 movie. And then he spoke. I'm like, oh, he's got an actual part. And then I messaged that to Mark as I was beginning my journey. And he was like, yes. And something like, yes. And all that implies. It's like, what do you mean, Mark? And then so by the time our heroine is getting, okay, this is a spoiler room, and I have to give a trigger warning. By the time our heroine is being sexually assaulted by Ray Liotta using a garden hose.
True story, kids. True story.
Yeah. So, and here's the thing is, that's how the movie starts. That's like 10 minutes in. And then pretty consistently, almost every 5 minutes, something happens that is so shocking that it makes you forget the garden hose until the garden hose makes a reprise later in the movie in a scene that is so tasteless. Like, just the spirit of it is more tasteless than the way that the hose was actually used in the beginning of the movie, at least in my not so humble opinion. So essentially, this is our women on top, women rising to the top month. And it's a great way to close it out. We've seen in other films we've discussed someone trying to make it in the world of business or entertainment by any means necessary. And Jerry Lee goes from person to person, kind of climbing this ladder. The main difference here is that she has some real talent. She is, under some of these questionable layers, a genuinely good person who gets caught up in this world of sleaze. And I think by the end of it, it's I say this is a perfect companion piece to Showgirls. This is the movie that I think Showgirls wished it could be. There you go, Katie. And
we all said this while you were out.
While you're out, we were all talking about this.
Well, but I gotta say, this has one of the great mic drop endings I think I've ever seen. And
yeah,
I know my synopsis is going all over the place, but I just want to get this out there. It reminds me of the movie The Butterfly Effect with Ashton Kutcher that came out about 20 years ago. My wife and I went to go see that movie, and for the first half hour, we kept looking at each other thinking, you want to just fucking get up and leave? Because this is terrible. It's just like depravity and, stuff happening to kids and like things happening to puppies in a river. And like this, why are we sitting here? By the end of the movie, we realized that all of that buildup and that depravity and darkness was to serve the story. And I feel like that's sort of the case here with Lonely Lady. It is dark, depraved, and just beyond anything most of you, I think, out there have seen. But in the end, it's all worth it because our character triumphs over it all and still makes it out before she completely loses herself. Spoiler alert. So that's my story, and catch you guys later. Thanks.
No. You ain't going
very apt. I mean, and it does have the great mic drop of her accepting what, I mean, I guess they can't say the Academy Awards. I forget what the name they used was. It was something very generic, like the Hollywood award something, whatever. Yeah. But she's receiving the best screenplay Oscar, for lack of a better word, which in this case is holding up a severed head.
Yeah,
like the thing in the beginning, like the statue was somebody holding up the severed head of another statue. I don't know why, but she receives it and she basically goes and says, "I'm sure I'm not the only one who fucked her way to the top." And by that moment, I was like, what the fuck? The thing that gets me is they boo her. Everybody at this ceremony starts booing her, which probably would have happened in the 80s if somebody came out and said that.
Especially a woman.
Especially a woman basically saying, yeah, I got this, but I had to fuck people to get it. I had to fuck people to get in the position to get it. So, wow. Yeah, this was something else.
You know what was one of my favorite parts of that scene during the awards is that we have very limited people that, there's an actor, there's a restaurateur, there's a producer, there's a screenwriter and stuff. And when they're listing off the names of the people who are nominated for this award, they say her name, Jerry Lee Randall. and then they say like some other person's name, and then after that they say another person's name whose first name is Jerry Lee. And my thing was like, seriously, guys, you had, I mean, really? How common of a name is Jerry Lee that you actually had to use it twice? Like, it's a dumb, small thing, but I'm like, what? This is already like so beyond ridiculous that it's like, what?
I mean, that's the second instance where they've had the repeat name, because the sleazy agent guy was named George, and our Mr. Ballantyne was also named George.
Yeah.
And it's George. That, you know, it's not like Bill or John. It's George. Like, that's not. It's a somewhat common name, but come on, something else.
I guess you're right. Jerry Lee.
Right. But no, I gotta say that after the I had to fuck my way to the top line, she said, I think the one that is much classier. I think they could have left out the previous line, but she said, not all of them gave as much as they took, but that's no surprise. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's a great. This movie has some great writing in it. I don't know what's going on.
At times it just goes.
At times, yes. At times, yeah.
It's so weird, because there are times where I'm like scratching my head, going, "What the hell was this?" And there's times where I'm like, "That was a genuinely cool thing that happened." One of the things that got me is Ray Liotta's girlfriend at the beginning, when they're trying to get Pia Zadora. This is people trying to fuck Pia Zadora, the movie.
Oh yeah,
it's the whole thing.
Everyone.
But the thing
everyone except George, one of the Georges.
one of the Georges, yeah. The thing that gets me in the beginning is when Ray Liotta trips her as she's getting out of the pool, or as he's chasing her to rape her. The girlfriend seems to be totally cool with it until he pulls out the garden hose. It's like, oh, well, that part's too far. Well, I was totally cool with you raping her.
Maybe
it's
she
like
thought
you smacking her around and hitting her. That's fine, but it's like the garden hose. Hold up, buddy.
That's specifically. Yeah. I thought you were going to rape her with your penis.
Yeah.
The garden hose thing is totally off limits.
You guys are missing the point. The garden hose was their thing. It's infidelity when she's trying to use it on someone else. Yeah,
gotcha.
She was jealous because he
that was
their thing, was the garden hose. Why did he have to use it? Well, what's interesting about that sequence too is like Ray Liotta suddenly goes from like Dr. Jekyll to Mr. Hyde type of thing to where he's like Mr. Suave with the girlfriend, and she's giving him oral, and they're trying to get Pia Zadora, his character, they're trying to get, Jerry Lee in on it. And the guy she's with, he's a little more reserved and all of that. And then they go out to the swimming pool, and then he's like chasing her. And then while he's holding her down, all of a sudden he gets that manic look on his face. Like suddenly he's like
in a Ray Liotta movie.
Jekyll. Yeah. He rayed out, kind of like you have Nick Cage, pull Cage Rage. You've got Ray out here, and he pulls the hose, and then they're like no, and then the one dad shows up, and then she ends up with it. This is where it takes this weird turn, because he's like, oh, you poor thing, and then she ends up becoming enamored with him. And they actually get married.
One of the worst weddings I've ever seen. I don't even know what that was.
I don't even know what kind of wedding it was, but I put in my notes, they get married, exclamation point.
Yeah, it just jumps right into it too. There's nothing in between. You go from the mother saying you're too old for him, and then she suggests the guy that she was with at the party, who basically did nothing.
Well, like he busted out because Bernie was like her childhood friend who obviously she put into the friend zone. And it's like, why don't you do stuff with Bernie? It's like, well, Bernie kind of left me with a hot dog in my hand. And so then I went with the screenwriter's son because, let's get to know him, razzle dazzle and all that stuff. But let's backtrack a little bit, fellas. Let's talk about the mom. Let's talk about the mom when she found out what happened to her daughter, because the thing that will always be stuck in my brain was at least she wasn't raped.
Yeah.
He was.
But she was. Yeah.
Wow, Mom. Wow. That was, and at least the neighbors don't know. So that way she won't have to be embarrassed for the rest of her life. I'm like, Jesus Christ, 1983. This is so horrible.
Well, and then she was in the hospital for the attack, and her mom came to get her. And I think it was the doctor or whatnot. Oh, the doctor. He just goes to the mom and goes, she should be fine. And I'm just like sitting there going, what do you mean she should be fine?
Well, even because she's in the bed, just at the house. They didn't like clean her up at all. She had still had trickles of blood running down her mouth. Like, what? You need to dab that or something? I don't know.
And wasn't she wearing her same shirt, that same yellow shirt?
I think so, yeah.
Could you not change or put it into something for evidence later? Oh wait, no point in
going to
talking to the cops.
We're not calling the police on this.
She can't afford a lawyer. Those boys, no one's going to believe her. I'm like, they might. I mean, you had enough witnesses. It's like, but then, the one guy, he's like, yeah, well, my son's in Europe now. It's like, all right. Even though he had really nothing to do with it, he at least tried to stop Joe, Ray Liotta.
The only thing I'm thinking of, I would have to go back and watch that scene again, which I will never do. But I'm thinking, as far as physical evidence, since he used a hose, maybe it would be harder to, link him to the crime. There's no DNA evidence.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that seemed like that was her first sexual encounter. So I would say there's definitely some DNA and other things on there.
And they were trying. They were going very clunkily about it, trying to play off that it was a class thing of how, they're blue collar, the mom and her daughter, and those are Beverly Hills folks, so she can't afford the lawyer, and some other things too, like he wasn't prosecuted probably because it's implied, because his parents are rich or whatnot, he gets sent off to Europe rather than a slap on the hand or whatever, rather than getting arrested or anybody looking into it, even though you had a legitimate rich guy witness this thing and come and save her, right?
Well, but he was the guy who got sent off to Europe. He sent
did,
Walter.
Yeah.
No, it was
Walter.
It was Walter
really
Jr. that got
Beverly
sent out
Hills.
there.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I get those two. I think I got those two guys confused. Bernie.
Yeah, I might have got him.
This is this is my first time watch.
Look, I mean, no, it's not hard to get them confused because honestly, they looked almost exactly alike. Like there really wasn't anything that really differentiated them that much, other than Bernie had the hot dog with ketchup and then threw it away, and the other guy, it's like, here's a hot dog without ketchup. I'm going to put some stuff on it. There you go.
By the way, this movie. Sorry, I just choked on my own phlegm on this. This movie seems to actually try to make earnest attempts at making a story. She's literally choosing between two hot dogs, literally right in front of her. That each guy is holding a hot dog. She grabs one guy's hot dog.
And the way he's holding the hot dog too in front of her, it's like the whole.
It is so heavy-handed.
Like this, when he holds it like this, because I'm like, because that's the normal. Whenever I go,
I always hold it like
this is how I hold a hot dog. Everybody, like all my fellow fans, all my fellow hot dog eaters.
I felt seen watching this movie. I felt seen.
But she's literally choosing between two hot dogs. That was like, what the fuck?
The budget for this film too. I'm sorry, but. Did you guys check the little name plaque in quotes on the guy, the screenwriter's award that he had? It looked like someone took marker on like a little gold plaque. It was so cheap looking, and I'm like, wait, what? And then,
okay, so I thought that was just me, and I thought I imagined that.
No,
because I noticed that on some of the other awards, it looked like it was just marker, and I'm like, is this supposed to be a joke, like something that his kids did or something? Like, what is this? Like when she goes into his the screenwriter's study, and it's like, look at all these awards. This is going to be me someday. And it's like, I have daddy issues and my father left me. It's like, wait, what? Hold on. No, I want to be a screenwriter.
Yeah. And then she befriends, falls in love. She conflicts with her mom. She still gets married to the guy who could be her father, screenwriter. Their kiss was not believable. My God, that was an awkward screen kiss. I mean, that was not. I haven't seen an awkward kiss like that since Birdemic.
I haven't seen an awkward sex scene like that either.
Yeah.
Or the awkward
and done.
Well, I mean, I didn't understand why he was wearing a sweater while he was in bed with her. Like, I couldn't understand that. And then I realized, oh no, buddy, that's you.
That's just
it's like a snow-swept coal mountain. I don't know what was going on there.
So our poor girl who was violated by a garden hose, she gets with this elderly gentleman who has problems getting it up many times. Poor woman, she's just looking, she's trying. And did you guys notice? I don't know if maybe they shot the scenes back to back between night and day or whatnot, but when they get into the argument because he can't satisfy her. I think this was after the dinner scene where they meet not John Travolta later on, and they're having problems. They're out by the pool and the hose was on the ground, like almost in the exact same position that we saw the hose before.
It looked like the exact same hose.
It did.
And
it was the exact same hose.
It's supposed to be?
Yeah. Because
it's his house.
Because that's the thing. It's Beverly Hills. Obviously, he's rich, and yet he can't afford to buy another hose that had not sexually assaulted a teenager in his home.
And this is the scene that I think Ian was referring to in his synopsis of the hose making a reprieve in probably a way that's even more tasteless than it originally was, which is her husband holding it up and saying maybe what was something about maybe this is more
is what you need. Yeah,
maybe this is what you want, or this is more your speed, or something like that.
Something like that. And I'm like, I mean, obviously that's gonna end the marriage because the next scene I don't think they're together anymore.
No,
and,
they don't.
I don't think anybody who ever treats anybody like that don't ever fucking stick with them. But
no, they don't. They don't get divorced because then she moves on to the star of the film that she was doing the writing of the notes on. Well, never mind the fact. Not only Heavy-Handed is so right with this film because all the messaging and imagery in here is so in your face, like just slap you. Like here, Jerry Lee was brought on by her husband. This was before they were having problems. To do some rewrites for the script, and then she comes up with a new scene that ends up being better. But he's threatened by that. Never mind the fact he can't get it up in bed. So now you've got a double threat to his manhood, and she starts falling for the actor. Huh?
Not even a new scene. She adds one line of dialogue to the movie, and that sets him off because everybody loves it.
Yeah, because it's like she takes out all the crap that they had been shooting. It's like, just have her say this one word. That's all she needs to say. It's like, don't you tell me what to do. And I'm like, just like you said, Mark's like, didn't you hire me to do rewrites? Like, isn't this actually my job? It's like, and then what happens? This is the thing, and this is kind of a twist in the film too. When you actually see the scene happen, what in the movie that she that they're like been going over and over, what happens? They actually use what she wrote, and then everyone's like, oh, bravo, that's it. That was exactly what I needed. That's what I've been wanting to do all this time. Thank you so much. You totally know. And it's like she's just looking at her like, wait a minute, that was what I suggested. And it's like he's taking all the credit.
And he took all the credit, yep.
And it's literally one word. It's just the word why. She just had the character say the word why.
And poor Jerry Lee at this point is what, 19? Because
she's got to be really young.
I mean, if that, she may be 18 and a half because we don't really know like how long. I wasn't sure if it was high school or if it was college that she won the award, but I kind of thought it was high school, and that still kind of creeped me out.
And actually, even in that scene at the very beginning, when she's winning that award at the school, whether it's a high school or a college, there's one of the older woman on there is just like being like a total dick to her too.
Cuts her off. Yeah,
like, just completely cuts her off when she's talking about like her, what she finds important in the process of making a movie.
Well, and like getting women's voices out there, it's like, okay, enough of that. We don't need any of this. Like, and then her, George, the director, it's like, wink. It's like, we'll talk later.
Well, I mean, there's some stuff going on in here. What you're talking about. I mean, that scene with the faculty member or whatever cutting her off and kind of being snippy about it. I mean, this is 1983, so we've got 41 years to look back on it. But you have to consider the time in which this movie was made. There were people who weren't that happy about women speaking up and using their voice in that way, and a lot of them were actually women, upsetting the apple cart kind of thing. And as far as the heavy-handedness, a lot of what you've talked about, Mark, are things that we've seen as cliches in the last 40 years. But I can imagine this movie, watching it now and thinking about when it was made, like a lot of the stuff we've talked about from the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s feel like ahead of their time and very transgressive. This feels very much in that same vein. I mean, you're talking about the early 80s. You've got movies like Fast Times at Ridgemont High dealing with relationships and abortion. You've got that in this movie to an extent. You've got 9 to 5, which is like women in the workplace. There was something in the air going on in the early 80s, and I think this captured that, not in a way that's heavy-handed then necessarily, but it feels that way looking back on it now because we've seen kind of so much of it.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, throughout the film, you always have like producers like, well, women writers. I mean, we can't. It's like, why don't you name 5 women writers? They always keep criticizing women writers, yet they can't. They don't have anyone that are writing for them or that are doing any of the work. So then, why are you criticizing them that you can't get everything that you would want from them? I mean, Jerry Lee, even though she she started off with. She has 2 books that are published, and then she wrote a screenplay that was like her baby. I mean, she did everything for this child, and to the detriment of her. And damn it, poor little Pia Zadora. She's so tiny to see her go through all this. But yeah, I just keep thinking about like every time she keeps like, oh, she's a writer. And you always have at least one guy. It's like, well, women writers, blah, blah, blah.
She even names 2 early female screenwriters, and the guy immediately dismisses them and says, well, they don't count. Immediately. Oh, yeah. And also, go to your point of how tiny Pia Zadora is, I think that actually adds to us feeling sorry for her because she looks, she's so tiny that she doesn't look like she can handle herself.
Yeah. I mean, bring up Dorothy Parker. She brings up Dorothy Parker.
That's what it was. It was Dorothy Parker that she brings up.
Well, right. But again, think about where we're at. Female writers were not, executives, creatives in that degree in Hollywood were they're still the tiny kind of minority. And it was very much a big old boys club to a certain extent. So it's not so much... can you name 5 female writers? Like, who gives a shit? These guys don't care. They've got they probably have their clique of, guy writers that they go to, or, they might be more willing to listen to a young aspiring screenwriter who's a guy than some person off the street who, frankly, is only in the room because she glommed on to a famous screenwriter who's a guy. They might have smelled that. We've seen that in this Women on Top month, or whatever. I can't remember what we even called it. By any means. I think it was going to be like we were talking about that as a title like last month. So yeah, but now it's By Any Means. But that's a running theme, is an immediate suspicion or lack of respect for the women who get in the room, because in a lot of these movies we've talked about, they've gotten there by sleeping their way to the top or manipulation or whatever. The thing I like about this movie, the thing that stands out, is it's clear from the beginning that Jerry Lee Randall has genuine talent and genuine drive. Even, there's some time jumps in this movie when she breaks up with Walter and we find her going into living this like rat hole apartment. And I think it was Guy, the director, who was on that picture, comes to visit her. I think it was him.
He's the makeup guy. Guy Jackson was, I think, the makeup guy or whatever. He was the best character. I love that character. Anyway, go ahead.
No, that was he was the director. He was the one who was trying to get the film made towards the end. Yeah.
Right.
But he comes to visit her, and it's at that point we realize, okay, a good chunk of time has passed because, as was mentioned here, she's published 2 books.
Yeah.
So this is not someone who's, oh, I've been assaulted and turned down and kicked out of all these rooms in Hollywood. I'm just going to go cry and wait for my next opportunity. No, she's by any means necessary. She's making it on her own, and she sees this opportunity to get back into the business and really go for that screenwriter credit, which she wants. And then at the end, as we've seen with so many of these films, she gets what she wants and realizes that it's not really what she wanted at the cost that it, was at what it cost her. And so as goofy and weird, and we haven't even gotten to the freak out montage that landed her in the mental asylum, as this movie is, I think it really is kind of wonderful and would be great for a remake, that kind of like Maxine, remake the movie, but set it in 1983.
I agree. I think it would be good for remake. I don't know if we necessarily need to have the hose scene or anything like that. Maybe just shaken up and stuff, and someone gets off her and she, but I don't think we need to go that far. But I do think I would like to see a remake of this, and just, despite everything that Jerry Lee has gone through, that she rises above and then ends up winning, the best screenplay on her own merit. I mean, should have to sleep with a lot of people to do it, but it's her own merit. I mean, a lot of those people didn't know who the hell she slept with to get there, so there's that.
Well, it's interesting with the sleeping part too, because she first held off. That's why she couldn't get an agent, because she gets the one agent who says, well, I could get you parts, wink, if you do something for me, we could. And she's like, well, no. And then you have Mr. DeCostas, not John Travolta, Travolta here, who promises her that he's starting up a company and he's going to produce her script, and he just strings her along and keeps that script for like a year, but she starts working at the nightclub because she needs money, and she ends up befriending a couple of people. This is like Showgirls. Oh my God, this is so much. This film is getting so much like Showgirls.
No, DaCosta, 20 years after this movie, he's moved out to Vegas and become the manager of a strip club, and he changed his professional name to Robert Davi.
There you go.
There you go. And he's softened in his old age, huh?
Apparently not, considering what they had to do to get that job. But anyway, sorry, true. Katie.
No, I really... Besides the thing with the hose, which, I mean, honestly, it doesn't matter. That's always going to be like a Jesus Christ moment in this film. I really hated that she had a relationship with DaCosta, because it's like, she stands up and he's like doing all this coke it's like, you're going to do this. You're going to go up to it's like, this is my script and I'm going to go that. And then she's like, hi, I'm sorry. And then I'm like, what the fuck is this? And then they end up having this like whole sex scene where she's like running around naked, and then he like forces her to do cocaine, which I'm like, I don't even know what the hell is going on here. And I'm like, Jerry Lee, you had me at standing up to him, and then that whole like, I'm sorry, and then it's like, that was just a crappy moment. That was a really crappy moment in the film.
Well, I'm surprised she didn't have like concussions or something, because she keeps getting like physically shaken about like the shoulders and the head during all these.
She's so small.
She's
so little.
But I it's a frustrating part, but that's the part where it's supposed to be frustrating. And again, this is a bit of the heavy-handedness, but still, I get what they're going for is, she's resigned herself. She's like, okay, I'm sorry, Mr. DaCostas, because she's finally realizes, well, I'm going to have to do some things I don't like in order to get my script made, apparently, because I'm not going to change Hollywood and I'm going to end up not having my script made. And she really wanted her script made. So first there's DaCostas, who then pimps her out. And then, she gets pimped out to the one Italian director and his wife, you know, who just got strung her along, and then she got pimped out to another couple, a power couple apparently, to actually produce her script, and that was the couple that got her movie made. But yeah, it's that point that you're talking about, Katie. You're supposed to be frustrated because it's like she has resigned herself, and then yeah, we have the whole asylum bit after she breaks. That was, you know, that's where she wrote her actual script, because she had her baby, and that was what she went through with DeCostas until she found that he was making time with the two servant ladies, one of them whose job she saved. And so that's when she flakes out. And then she goes into asylum. Then she writes what I'm assuming is her story, is what I gathered was the script was what she had gone through up to her asylum breaking point.
Yeah, because it's titled The Holdout, like
right.
But the thing another thing that struck me is when they have that meeting and the guy tells, you know, when she says she doesn't want God, what was the character's name? She doesn't want him involved.
George.
She doesn't want him involved, and he's like, well, you know, here in this town, this is the baby. You already had one abortion. Don't have another one.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, I'm sorry. Is that common knowledge that she had an abortion with his baby? Because last time I checked, it was only her mom who was like, what? How do you do that? Yeah, I didn't understand that. Or no, I mean, I was like, Jesus Christ, now they're talking about her abortion? Like,
Well, what I took from that was Guy and she became very close. Mm-hmm. There's whole, I don't know how long she was locked up, but he cared for her. He, you know, became her friend and confidant. So it's entirely possible that came out because Guy at least knew that George Ballantyne was, you know, he had he knew about it. Mm-hmm. And what's creepy is that another parallel to Showgirls, this is at the end scene where Kyle MacLachlan is talking to Liz Berkley about that singer guy that had assaulted the best friend and said, mm-hmm. oh, he's part of the family, and now so are you. Right. Guy, in talking about, look, we got to cast it with, I'm directing, you're a screenwriter, and it's got to be George Ballantyne. And this is, you know, make this movie. That's the second abortion line. That's when he had his heel turn. I think that's when the light switched off in her head, or switched on. One thing, I don't know that this was her story, that screenplay, because the title of the movie was The Holdouts. It was plural. And she was talking earlier on in the movie to Walter, I think, the screenwriter guy, about the story that she really wanted to tell. The movie she wanted to make was about a young couple post-Vietnam kind of navigating relationships. I think that's the story, because if it had been her story, given the reaction that she received at that award show, I don't think, and also the climate and what we see, you know, as far as the attitude towards Hollywood and women during the period that this movie is set, I don't think they would have been ready for that necessarily. It would have been too raw, and I don't think it would have been up for an Oscar for sure, or whatever that was.
Did you guys notice that when she goes to the hot tub and the producer guy's like, oh, this is my wife. Why don't you guys get to know each other? And she's like, yeah, if you want to come in. And then Jerry Lee just goes,
yeah.
And I'm like, oh, girl, yeah.
Man or woman.
Yeah.
Man or woman, it doesn't matter. She's got to fuck somebody.
Well,
I just feel so bad when she did that side. It's like,
well, it was at least two women, which, you know, I thought that was actually an interesting angle, because up until that point we had seen it just be men, until there was the first Italian director and his wife, which she got into the one hotel room with, and then he came out and he's like, what script? You know, she got basically,
you speak English?
yeah. And then, so, you know, there you had his wife, the Italian director's wife, kind of trying to seduce her. And then here you have it again. And I just thought it was interesting that I'm like, oh, they're showing that, yeah, it's not just guys, it's people with clout, with power, with the money to make your dream happen. they're going to take advantage of you, whether or not you're a guy or a girl. It doesn't matter. They both will take advantage of you in order to get you your dream. How far do you want to go with it? Which was, kind of her resigned. You're right. With that hot tub scene, which was the last person, we're assuming the last people she had to sleep with to get her film made.
One can hope.
She resigned.
In terms of this
herself.
movie, was the last person that we know of.
Yeah.
Well, and I think we learned from the beginning of the film, though, it's like maybe the reason why these guys were having Jerry Lee sleep with their wives is because Little Blue Pill hadn't come out yet.
Well, yeah.
So there's a lot of erectile dysfunction in Hollywood with these older guys. So it's like, hey, you're a young lady with some,
well, we already
sauce in her. Like, here's my wife. Why don't you guys get to know each other?
Well, we had already seen that earlier with her husband, who, I mean, she stayed married to him throughout this whole endeavor, and he stayed married to her rather than getting a divorce, which is kind of Hollywood, because there's other Hollywood couples too that, technically they're still legally married, but they go off and they both have their own relationships later on. They just end up staying married.
We kind of saw this last week with the redheaded woman, because you have the relationship that she'll have with an older man, but she's still fucking the chauffeur.
Yeah.
The young virile chauffeur is who she's actually going to be having sex with. For the older French guy, what's she going to be? Arm candy? What's in 1932 they certainly didn't have a Little Blue Pill.
No. Well, and I think honestly she did have genuine feelings for Walter, her husband.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, and yes, he is an older gentleman. Her mom says that she didn't really have a father, so her mom raised her on her own. There could be daddy issues. There's definitely the admiration and the infatuation that she has, because it's like, his career is what she wants to be. She wants to be the female Walter. And then when he sees her and she's like actually getting that that respect and attention that she's wanted, I actually thought, I was sad that Walter turned out to be a shitbag, because it's like, that you were right, Ian, that thing that he says about her, and then again bringing up Mr. Hose, it's like, wow, that was really unnecessary and uncalled for, and definite we're getting a divorce.
It was always go ahead.
I was going to say, like, the thing about Walter is he's a much more complex character than even that scene suggests.
Yeah.
Because I was reacting to that just viscerally, I think, because it was earlier on in the movie. I'm like, this movie is just like, it's relentless and it's ugly. And it is an ugly moment, but from what you see of him, he's an older screenwriter. He took a different path than he really originally wanted to be a poet, and realized there was no money in it. And so as he's gotten older and he's probably seeing more competition, he's still getting jobs and everything, he's respected, but you can still see those insecurities in him. And when he feels like he's being sniped at by someone that he's in a relationship with, and he's wondering, is she just using me, regardless of the fact that I might have been using my influence to get my son out of a jam to cover up a crime? There's so many layers here. But as far as him using that hose line, I saw that as like rampant insecurity, pettiness, and the heat of the moment. I don't think he actually meant it. And he was jealous of DaCosta.
Yeah.
And at the end of the movie, it's a very brief line, but Jerry Lee tells Guy, oh yeah, Walter's been paying for my treatments at the mental hospital. So and I think he was genuinely hurt at the end when he's called out by name at the award ceremony. Not that he didn't deserve it, but yeah, the pathos in this movie, you could write like 10 psych textbooks about just the characters in this movie alone.
Well, you're right about Walter. I think of all the guys she was with, Walter still cared about her even at the end, and he was kind of happy. He didn't like being called out necessarily, but he was happy for her that she got her award in a way, you know, and her speech too. You almost get this look on his. He's the only one that has kind of a look on his face, this little smirk, like, yeah, you know, she's made it in Hollywood.
Yeah, he doesn't have this screaming, like ripping up his program, saying that broad took my award or something like that. It was nice. Sorry, Katie, I don't want to step on you.
No, because you know, when I don't think that when she called out Walter's name, it was necessarily a jab, because she's, you know, she's saying that it's like, you know, I know it's like, you know, I lost, or something about self-respect, and that was something that he said about actresses, you know, they lose their self-respect when they're trying to do that. And then when she says that to Walter, it's almost like, you know, I tried. I hate this happened to me, and you were right. It's not, but it's not just actresses. It's like also this. And then she storms off. And I almost thought it's like, and I saw his face, and he seemed like to be to me, I thought that was concern. I don't know. I may fast forward through a lot of it and rewatch that part, like really fast forward, so I don't get any of the other thing. But to me, that, yeah, it seemed like, you know, despite everything that happened from the beginning of their relationship, I mean, let's be honest, the first time he meets her is when she's being sexually assaulted by some guy that he doesn't like. Who the hell is this kid on my damn lawn with? It's like something that I use to like water my lawn, and like doing this to this girl that I have no idea. It's like, great, now I got to shove my kid, you know, out of the country in case the mom calls the police. And now let's get to know her. And yeah, so then from that to that, it's like you see her like at her worst in the beginning, and then almost at her worst at the end. And it's like Walter's kind of there, like with that, you know, I thought it was a concerned face. I didn't think he looked necessarily perturbed. But again, I'm going to have to really quickly fast forward that to the last 3 minutes. And then, you know, we get the song, The Lonely Lady.
Which the lyrics are slightly different at the end than the beginning in true late 70s, early 80s fashion about, you know, what she's done. The lyrics are like, it's like the second verse at the end, and we got the first verse at the beginning. Yeah, that theme song. Oh man, that theme song is something.
What did you think about the people in the crowd, like went at the award show and stuff?
You mean at the beginning?
Yeah.
Get me something like that. Well, maybe you should look like that.
Yeah. Why don't you get me a dress like that? Why don't you get a body that looks like that? It's like,
which actually kind of felt similar to a film we watched previous during Murder Month with Murders in the Rue Morgue, where you had the groups in the circus and you had the guys making comments about the ladies up on stage. I'm like, oh, that feels familiar.
I just like how they introduced Pia Zadora. It's like, who's that? It's like, well, she doesn't have an escort, so she can't be anyone important. And then it's like, lonely lady. It's like, wow, you guys really like hit that home. It's like, not to mention the fact that there were two other women before her that were completely alone, but you didn't point them out. You just made sure it's like, who's the chick in the red? She's a no one because no one's with her. Lonely lady.
But that's also kind of funny because she's nominated for what in this universe is the Oscar for best screenplay, and nobody knows who she is, which is kind of perfect for writers in Hollywood because
that is true. That is true.
Nobody knows who they are. Nobody cares.
Nobody recognizes them. I mean, you might have a name, but you wouldn't. I couldn't tell you if I looked at, you know, out on the street, you could name half a dozen screenwriters who are Academy Award winners. I'd be like, who? Oh, you know, once they say their name, maybe, but it's like visually, you're like, yeah, who's that? Okay.
Well, especially it's 1983, and she's also a first-time screenwriter, so you know there might have been some buzz about her like in the trades, but still that's in print, if they even included a photo.
So this was Pia Zadora's first of two back-to-back Razzie Awards.
I saw that.
Yeah, she won. Well, this is her second. Her first one was Butterfly in 1981. She won the Razzie Award, and then she won this. what's interesting is her first showing, half the members of the Razzie, half the audience were voting members of the Razzie Awards for her opening night. Don't ask me how that ended up happening. And so, yeah, they laughed and hooped and hollered, but she won for this one. Here's an interesting angle too with the trivia for accepting the nomination. In the book, it is an Oscar. She wins Best Screenplay for the Academy Awards. And the scene where she gets her award features Jerry Lee Randall dropping her dress to appear totally nude with an Oscar statuette tattooed across her torso, with the head of which is buried in her crotch.
See, again,
that would have been a great ending.
I'm redoing this in 2025, stuff like that, and that I could see them totally doing that.
But this got nominated for 11 Razzies and won 6 of them.
Yes.
Then was nominated again at the end of the 80s for Worst Movie of the Decade. And then the next decade lost to Battlefield Earth for Worst Movie in the last 25 years, but it was one of the finalists for that too.
Wow.
So this movie was not liked by critics.
Does it say what was the worst film of the 80s then?
Now
Mommy Dearest.
What
is it?
Mommy Dearest.
What? Lonely Lady is way worse than Mommy Dearest. Oh my God. Seriously? Lonely Lady is so much worse than Mommy Dearest.
Which we started at the end of the month talking about Joan Crawford now because we mentioned Mommy Dearest.
Yeah. Another quick trivia tidbit with this. His name is Meshulam Rikolis, Pia Zadora's billionaire husband at the time this movie was made, reputedly spent $5 million to make the film and then paid Universal several million more to give it a theatrical release in the U.S.
That movie cost $5 million in 1983.
Apparently so.
I'm sorry. I mean, is it me or are you guys trying to figure out where that money went? I mean, what did it go to the cocaine on set?
This makes sense to me now because now this is clearly a vanity project.
No, I think it's the gold plating on that hose.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's and here's the thing, and not saying that Hollywood's that superficial, but we all know Hollywood that's superficial. If it got around, which I'm sure it did around town, that her billionaire husband is the one that put up the money to make Lonely Lady, that may have turned people off to the film even before they watched it to actually fairly judge it. If they found out, oh, well, her rich hubby got her to make this film and then paid money to get it distributed, especially in the 80s.
I don't know about that because Hollywood is replete with those stories going back decades. I don't think it matters that much.
Well, and honestly, that makes me worry more for her that it's like, this is a movie that your billionaire husband spent all this millions of dollars on. It's like, you know what? I've got a script. It's a bunch of shit. You're going to see me get it on with at least 4 guys, maybe 5, 3, and a little bit of some women. So what do you think? And he's like, I'm in. Where's my checkbook?
Whatever you want, my dear. Whatever you want.
Like, wait, you speak English? Hold on.
The thing that gets me about where the budget went is that the director of this movie was Peter Sasdy, great Hammer Films director who made Taste the Blood of Dracula and a couple of other really solid Hammer movies. And they never had the best budgets in the world, but they knew how to hide them. So, yeah, again, I don't know how he wasn't able to stretch a dollar to make it look better, make it look like it was more than it was, because he's made a career of it at this point.
Well, do you think it could have I mean, look, Lloyd Bachner, wasn't he like in the Colbys or something? I know he was in he's the guy who played Walter. He was a pretty well-known actor in the 80s, and he was like in one of the Naked Gun movies, I think, that like that. BB Besh was in a bunch of stuff. Like Joseph Cali had been in Saturday Night Fever. Anthony Holland looks familiar. I know he's probably in stuff. Jared Martin, who played George Ballantyne, he did stuff, like little stuff in the 80s. So maybe it went to the cast. I mean, no, I'm sorry, it didn't. This is 1983. I'm sure it's like if anyone made $50,000, that's like $200,000, and none of those people, I think, would have done that. So never mind. I just retract all of that. that $5 million did not go to the cast of that film.
Lloyd Bachner gave birth to one of the iconic 80s actors, Mr. Hart Bachner.
Did.
Yeah, Hart Bachner's dad.
Yeah.
So,
Anthony Holland was in All That Jazz in 1979.
Yes,
He was in Clute for 1971, or according to IMDb, are his big claims to fame. So he did a lot of TV show like one-offs too. Episodes here and there for like Facts of Life and all that. Mary Tyler Moore. He was in MASH for one episode. But yeah, he was in Midnight Cowboy as a TV bishop. So he did a lot of smaller parts, apparently.
I haven't seen Midnight Cowboy in like 25 years. I got to go back and visit that.
Me neither. But
and Clute, by the way, is a really excellent mystery. So anybody who hasn't seen that.
But yeah, no, you are right. I mean, it's not like they had necessarily, no names or a lack of experience.
They're all working actors and a working director.
Yeah.
Journeyman.
Yeah.
I mean, these are all people who have, their faces are familiar. They definitely would have been on the Love Boat at one episode or another. All those people that I just mentioned definitely had at least one episode on the Love Boat. We all know it's true. But yeah, 5 million really seems excessive for this film. I don't know if do you think they actually they actually constructed a actual nightclub instead of maybe renting out a nightclub?
They definitely just rented one out. But at points, it didn't even look like a nightclub. It looked like it was like a theater somewhere.
Yeah. So I don't know.
So $5 million, because we do this on the Spoiler Room, folks. We haven't done it for a little while, so we've got another conversion rate going on. How much do you think? I'm going to go around the room. Ian, you're first. How much do you think from $5 million in 84, how much that would be today?
Well, I just looked it up, so
he'll be last then?
You'll be last then. Fine. Joe, what do you think? How much?
20 million.
Katie?
12.7.
Wow. This is like The Price is Right. I love this.
I know.
Ian, what do you got?
I had 15.
Huh?
I had 15.
Yep. $15 million. So you were close, Katie. A little bit.
She was closest without going over.
Yeah, you were close without going over.
I win. I get to spin the wheel.
You get to spin the wheel. Well, first you got to go look at the yodeler and guess the 5 prices for Cheerios, for SpaghettiOs, and for car wash.
Look,
sprays.
my vocal stylings are really coming out with The Lonely Lady. I'm sorry. Once that theme song hit, after those two idiots at the beginning, it's like, who's she? Well, she doesn't have anyone with her, or she doesn't have a companion, so she must be nobody. Lonely lady. Like, oh, Jesus.
Well, never mind the fact, too,
what
that...
is Mark making us watch? Like, oh, God, this is bad.
My roommate could attest to this. Maybe two, at least 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, I found myself just singing out loud, "Lonely Lady." It just gets stuck in your head.
I know. I've been singing it all day.
I've scarred my panel for life. I love this.
My first message when the movie was over, I messaged the group chat that we're all on, and I was like, Mark, what the fuck did you make me watch?
Hey, we didn't even talk about Ray Liotta's Moose Knuckle. I mean,
coming soon to a username near you.
I forgot that in his in memoriam, thing. It's like,
they kind of skipped that over that part.
That's his first scene in a film. That is his first image of Ray Liotta. And go. Moose knuckle. There and cut. Way to go, Ray. Now let's go on to where you're even bigger of a creep. Thank you.
Those were some good fellas there.
Yeah.
Some good
I see what you
fellas.
did. I see what you did.
Mhm.
And
He
that
was
would
into something
then,
wild.
and then the rest of his career would just be basically different interpretations of that same character.
Pretty much. You know, it's funny. I was watching when we were watching this film. I'm like, okay, I kind of Lonely Lady theme song. We got all this. Okay, they're high school kids. They're at a party. They're in the and I'm like, wait, is his girlfriend going? Are they actually going? Oh, they're going there already, and we're only
Yep. Probably like
With
what?
one hand reaching
4 minutes
around,
in?
trying to-
with one hand reaching around trying to touch Pia Zadora while he's getting roadhead from his girlfriend. It's like, wow, okay, this is creeped. I am creeped already, and we're only like 10 minutes. Not even.
I was trying to figure out what exactly he expected to happen because they're in a moving car. Like what is?
He's gonna like jump around and get on him.
I don't know.
Well, and it's just, I mean, here's some of the best acting in the film. Both Pia Zadora and the guy driving just going like,
Yeah, they're both trying to completely ignore.
I mean, they're not even looking at each other. They made sure they weren't looking at each other at all. They're just like, this is happening. This is the most awkward thing I've ever been a part of. And
They sold the awkwardness of that well. That's for sure. Well, folks, I think we will wrap up Lonely Lady and wrap up By Any Means month. This is definitely a great way, I think, to end this month. But it's been an interesting month of films, I think. All interesting, different takes on folks doing any means necessary to get to the top. And it happened to be female women, but I didn't want to name the month Females on Top because then people might think it was a different type of series of films. And, you know, I didn't want to go there. So it's By Any Means Necessary, which I think was very fitting for our stories. And the Lonely Lady, final thoughts will go around the room, starting with you, Joe. Lonely Lady, would you recommend it? And any other final thought?
I would recommend it as like one of those movies where like you're just getting together with friends and just like having a blast with it because that's what I got from it. Is this movie? I guess the best word I could think of for it is outlandish. It is one of the most outlandishly written and acted movies I've ever seen in my life, and immediately, like. Right in the pre-show, Katie pulled out her Vinegar Syndrome 4K of Showgirls, and immediately when I was watching it, I yelled out to my roommate who was in the other room, like, "Bro, this is Showgirls in the '80s."
Yeah.
And Katie said it when she came on. Ian said it when he came on.
Yep.
We all felt that vibe. Mark, when he was going through the synopsis, like, "Holy shit, this is Showgirls." That's what this is. This is 1980s Showgirls, and it's fun, even though it's sleazy. Like, I think it's just so outlandishly written that it just, you can't, like, you laugh. Like, I find myself laughing at this movie when it has so much dark stuff happening that I shouldn't find funny. But it's just the way it's presented makes me laugh.
Mm-hmm. Katie, what about you? Final thoughts with Lonely Lady?
Lonely Lady definitely earned all of those Razzies. Those were awards that were well earned. Congratulations, Lonely Lady, for that. If you want to see Pia Zadora in a film that I personally love, that is just completely out there and ridiculous, Voids of the Rock Aliens. It has an amazing soundtrack. It has Craig Sheffer. It has a number of people.
Yes.
Were very small stars when this came out, and they've gone on to do different things. This is what you should watch. Lonely Lady, major trigger warnings before you see this.
Too.
Again, rewatching this, this is the one film right now that I can say after I watch, because I watched this at home when I was a child on cable. Mom and Dad definitely should have been paying more attention to what I because goddamn. Like I will all like seriously, the hose scene is a core memory for me that I don't need in there. And I'm not talking like, inside it's an inside out core memory for me that it's like, yep, yeah, nope, I totally remember that. And I think I was like 9 or 10 when I watched this. So thanks, Gen X for just putting your kid in front of the TV and like letting him watch whatever, because what could go wrong? I think this would be as many of the mistakes as they made with this film. I think if they redid it, it would be I think it would be a tale that I would like to see if they redid it in the modern with the modern age, or if they redid it set in 1983 to show that. I think it could be a better film. Just go in knowing that you're going to see some shit and and you're going to be talking about it with some people for about an hour and really just go back to that one scene throughout the thing, multiple times.
Yeah. Truth. Ian, how about you, sir?
It's it's definitely a strange movie. It's definitely offbeat. I mean, we didn't talk about the the freak out montage, which I thought they used like all of the cutting edge, I guess, 1983 special effects trip out scene tools they had in their toolkit. I think to great effect. It's very odd. Today they would all be CG and crazy edits and stuff, but they really tried. And that's the thing I admire about this movie is they really tried. I feel like the people who made this movie were really trying to say something and get something across. It's just they perhaps didn't have all the skill to do it in a way that wouldn't get them 6 Razzies or whatever. I think a lot of the Razzie conversation and even some of the camp and the high cheek we've been giving it this evening is kind of unwarranted. I think you can watch this movie and see a lot of performances that are earnest, a lot of great ideas that even especially for the time, were very cutting edge. A lot of things we're still we should be thinking about and considering even today. So yeah, it's a tough recommend on a serious level, but I think if you can get on its wavelength, and Joe, you call this a fun movie, I'll agree. But after minute like 35. Getting to if you can, this is I want to offer a Stan Lee no prize. If you can get to minute 35 in this movie, you win something. And then if you do that and you're in it for the rest of the balance of the hour and 10 or whatever it is, then I think you'll really have something there.
Yeah, I think I agree with you that there was an earnest attempt to make a message movie here.
Yes.
I just don't think they pulled it off.
No.
And that's the thing is I think that they did because, again, looking at this in 2024, it's easy to see the camp and the cheese. In 1983, I think the reaction to it may have had something to do with what we were talking about. Why would Jerry Lee's story not necessarily make it as a Hollywood movie in the reality in which she was living? I think it cut a little bit too close. I think there was a little bit of that attitude of the uppity woman in the workplace trying to ascend to the heights that men have achieved and be one of the boys that was not accepted back then. Could this have been a stronger movie? Certainly, but I think it was when you guys are talking about Razzies, I'm like, no, that's over the line. There are way worse movies from the 1980s, way worse movies from 1983, and also there could have, Mark, to your point about the billionaire husband or whatever paying to get this movie financed, I don't know that would have soured the chances of this to be something great, but I do feel like having that in the conversation could contribute to the film's reputation as being terrible. Yeah, well, she had, Pia Zadora is a terrible actress, and the only way she made it was someone paid for her to do it. And that's, if it's true, don't know, but I think it's kind of a sexist trope that I don't even want to think about.
Well, there is one thing, in a way, the end of the movie was right, because when she came out and basically stated the message of this movie, she was booed heavily. And this film was raked across the coals. So there's something to be said about that, about them. They knew the room that they were walking into.
Yeah.
You know, they knew right away this was not gonna fly with certain people. So kudos to them for even trying. And like I said, I appreciate the earnestness, the earnest attempt at making a good message movie. And I like Peter Sasdy anyway, so I'm glad I got to watch another movie he is.
And there you go. And Voyage of the Rock Aliens. That was one I watched a long time ago. That's definitely a fun movie.
Is that like rock is in rock and roll aliens? Is
Yeah,
that what we're
rock
talking
and
about? 'Cause
roll.
That sounds really
Alien.
fun.
Aliens land in the town of Spielberg and searching for a source of rock and roll, and they find trouble with Dee Dee, Frankie, and the Pack. So there's parodies on Grease. There's parodies on the Beach movie. There's Alien in there, and Spielberg. It's a fun movie. You're right, Katie. If you want to see a good, fun Pia Zadora movie that's like just outlandish but just fun, that's one. It's on Tubi,
and it's got great music because there's a song with her and I think it's Jermaine Jackson.
Yeah, it's Jermaine.
At the beginning of the film that kind of has nothing to do with the rest of the movie. I don't care. It's awesome. And they have a full music video with it. I'm like, bring it. Craig Sheffer, I think, sings in the film. He's got a song, which is great. Again, I don't know if it's really him, but if I ever see him at a con, I'm going to have to ask him, like, hey, did you actually sing this?
But
it's like, where did you get that? And I'm like, I know it's you.
And I think part of the way it comes off is that you're right, Ian. I'll agree. There is an earnest attempt to give a message with The Lonely Lady. I think it's so upfront with its message, like so in your face and blunt with its message. There's not a lot of nuance with what it's trying to say. It comes right out and say it. I think that may also turn people off, especially for what it's trying to say, especially in the 80s. That could have turned people off as well because it was so blunt and in your face that...
Mark, here's the thing. How do you make this movie without doing that? I mean, you look at the headlines of what Harvey Weinstein was coming out and talking about with people in the 1990s, and it's this.
It is true.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right. I'm just saying. I'm not saying that they had to. I'm just saying that's probably what helped contribute to people being turned off is the fact that it's such a glaring, bright light in the face. With the mirror, like here, that especially for back then. It may have really turned people off to it, even though it's telling the truth. It's just they didn't like hearing it.
And the people that were being shown themselves in the mirror lucked out in that the movie is cheesy enough that they could just completely shit on it.
Right.
Because had this been like perfectly crafted, we would have been, this would have been a completely different story.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Well, that's an interesting idea. Like if this had been a legit contender for even an Oscar instead of a Razzie, the talk of the town would have been like, okay, who is Guy? Who's the Walter of the real Hollywood? That kind of a thing. Yeah. Who's George Valentine?
Yeah.
Who's George Valentine?
Which I think George Valentine was probably Jack Nicholson.
Ooh.
That could be.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
I could see that. Wow.
That would be an interesting, like, who do each of us think that each one of these characters was?
For the 80s?
I mean, they had nightclubs that people would try and do, let's get my money into movies. Let's do this. Let's, there are people from the 80s that I can recall seeing, like, in People magazine and stuff like that. And I was like, I wonder if they're talking about this person. And now that we are talking about that, it's like, okay, now I do wonder who, the Italian, I don't know why I did the quotes on that. The air quote.
I mean,
the Italian producer. It's like he actually was Italian. It's like, oh, Italian.
Let's throw the name out there. That's De Laurentiis.
Yeah.
Because if there's somebody
Dino,
yeah. I mean, that's probably who that is. Because who's the biggest Italian, producer that they could be talking about in that scenario?
And then possibly the producer at the end, Robert Evans. I mean, you have an older screenwriter that's, with a younger woman. I don't know. I mean,
I'm pretty sure Jerry Lee was actually Elizabeth Berkley.
There you go.
There you go. Well, thank you very much. Hope you all have enjoyed this interesting conversation. It made you seek this film out, because I'm happy we did this month, because, again, I've been coming up with these theme months because a lot of these movies I've never watched before, but they're like, you run across them or you see them mentioned, you're like, huh? So I'm glad we got to watch The Lonely Lady. Will I revisit it? Probably not, but you never know. Maybe, I don't know. It sticks in your head pretty good, and I've actually watched it twice. So for the show. So there you go.
4K Vinegar Syndrome.
4K Vinegar Syndrome with lots of extras. Absolutely. So, folks, next month, don't worry about grabbing your favorite drink, because it's going to be a dry month in the spoiler room, as we're looking at 4 films involving prohibition. But you're also going to have enough time to catch up on all the wonderful episodes we've had, plus take our Over the Hill poll over on specialmarkproductions.com, because we're taking a week off.
Mark's been on vacation.
We are not going to actually be back until August 10th. I believe it's
September
10th.
10th.
September, excuse me. August is gone. September 10th, which is actually a Tuesday, we'll be back to talk Robin and the Seven Hoods, a film I'm very excited to talk about. I've watched many times. I can't wait to talk about that one. But so, yeah, next week, no spoiler room, but you can catch up on all the other stuff. Plus, I'm going to have a number of reviews, because hopefully by then, COVID goes away for me. So enough of me, though, babbling. Here's the part where I give a license to shill to my panel here. Katie, ladies first. What do you got for us?
You can find me on The Blonde in Front on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. I also guest on different vlogs and podcasts, so make sure you see on my social media, because I usually post where I am going to be a guest on, including Mark's, and Ian's. No, Ian's.
There you go. Fantastic. Thank you, Katie. And Joe, what do you got?
Before I show myself, I promised my dear friend Kylie Olaf I'd give her a shout out here. She's actually Wyatt Olaf's cousin, and today's her birthday. So she's probably not watching live. She'll probably watch tomorrow, because I'm hoping she's out enjoying herself for her birthday. So Kylie, happy birthday. And I'm sure I'll get a text from you tomorrow. As far as what I'm doing, I'm actually next Monday, I'm flying out to New York to be in Lloyd Kaufman's new movie,
nice.
The Power of Positive Murder. So that's not something I can show right now, because it's not going to be out probably for another year or so. Literary License Podcast. We're going to be tomorrow. We're recording. God, I'm already forgetting. Tales from the Hood and Holidays, and blanking on the other two, but it's 2 Haley Mills movies. So Whistle Down the Wind and The Chalk Garden. Those are the two. And I'm on the next season, The Last Drive-In. I just finished up season 6 with them, so the all-night marathon's coming up on Friday. So check that out on Shudder, starting at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Woohoo! Awesome.
I think that's it.
Mr. Ian Simmons, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. I'm Ian Simmons. I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com. I'm also here on YouTube. If you look up Kicking the Seat, you'll find me there. Do live streams and movie reviews and interviews and that kind of stuff. Not doing a live stream this week, although next week may be back if I can dredge up the wherewithal to get to the theater to go see Afraid, or as I like to call it, Afraid. Yeah, the new horror movie from Blumhouse. So yeah, I know, Katie. I know, I get it. I'm scared, but might have to talk about it. So yeah, that's me. That's what I'm all about. And I'm also here on Mondays, except for next week. Mark, what are you doing to us? And then I'll be back with the second Tuesday of September.
That one's my fault. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
It's
Anytime
okay.
I get to come talk movies with y'all, no matter what day it is, what time, I'll be here. I love it.
Well, especially for that one, for the fact that you cared about it so much, because it's a film that warms my heart every time I watch it. So it should be a fun.
Sammy Davis Jr. is going to bring the house down, and it's fantastic.
Oh my God!
His song and dance in that is just absolutely entrancing.
The cast in Robin and the Seven Hoods alone is making it worth watching. So I can't wait to talk about that one. Like I said, Over the Hill podcast special for next year. The voting, there's a link right on the Special Mark Productions page. Please go over there and let your voice be heard. You can vote up to 12 1975 films. Because I turn 50 next year, I go Over the Hill. So I figured, why not do an Over Hill special, look at movies from that era, that year I was born in. So that should be an interesting time. Some interesting choices so far up there. Of course, Rocky Horror Picture is near the top, but we got a few others in here that are kind of a surprise. Switchblade Sisters is still holding on as well. But yeah, so it should be a lot of fun. So enough of that, folks. Thank you so much for listening. And now until next time, we'll just say a good night, everyone.